Oscar Piastri has just dropped a revelation that has sent shockwaves through the entire McLaren camp, and the timing of it could not be more dramatic. With only 8 races remaining in the season and just 31 points separating him from his teammate Lando Norris, the Australian has chosen this exact moment to lift the lid on internal tensions, revealing that McLaren boss Zak Brown is sensitive when it comes to the subject of a title fight inside his own garage. That one carefully chosen word, sensitive, has completely reshaped the narrative around McLaren overnight. What fans once speculated about in whispers has now been confirmed publicly by the driver leading the championship fight. And by saying it out loud, Piastri has exposed the cracks within McLaren's carefully polished image, highlighting doubts and vulnerabilities that no team chasing a championship double can afford to reveal. The significance of this bombshell simply cannot be overstated. Formula One is not a sport that rewards hesitation or emotional management. It is built on ruthless precision, bold decision-making, and the ability to execute under relentless pressure. For McLaren's own star driver to openly admit that his team principal is approaching the title fight with caution, choosing to tread carefully rather than decisively, sends a deeply unsettling message. It suggests that the harmony McLaren have projected all year may be far more fragile than fans believed, and that beneath the smiles and PR slogans lies genuine uncertainty. Instead of appearing as a team with clear strategy and unshakable belief, McLaren now look hesitant, conflicted, and perhaps even fearful of the consequences that could follow if they upset either of their 2 drivers, whether that be their longtime homegrown star Norris or their new title challenger Piastri. And this is why Piastri's comments have become such a dramatic turning point in the season. His choice of words has added fuel to a fire that first sparked back in Monza, when he was controversially ordered to give a place back to Norris after executing the fastest pit stop of the year. That incident already raised eyebrows about McLaren's commitment to fairness, with many fans wondering if the team would tilt the scales in favor of their British driver. Now, with Piastri confirming Zak Brown's sensitivity, those suspicions have only deepened. The question looms large. If McLaren are already struggling to manage the optics of a title battle, how will they cope when the gap shrinks even further and every single point could decide the championship? Formula One is merciless. It does not forgive indecision, and it certainly never forgets weakness. Piastri's revelation is being described as explosive precisely because it touches on the very identity of McLaren. This is not just about Piastri versus Norris anymore. It is about whether McLaren, a team that built its legacy on legends like Senna, Prost, and Hakkinen, still has the courage to face the intensity of a championship fight head-on, or whether they will crumble under the weight of internal pressure. By speaking so candidly, Piastri may have forced Zak Brown and his leadership group into a corner from which there is no easy escape. One thing is absolutely clear. The fallout from this will only intensify in the weeks ahead, and every single decision between now and Abu Dhabi will now be judged through the lens of this controversy. What makes Piastri's bombshell so powerful is not just what he said, but the timing and manner in which he said it. All season long, he has been the definition of calm and composed, a driver who rarely gives the press anything controversial to twist. Yet, with the season entering its decisive final phase, he has chosen this exact moment to open the door ever so slightly and let the world peek inside McLaren's inner workings. His use of the word sensitive when describing Zak Brown and the leadership team was no accident. It was not a fiery outburst, nor a rehearsed corporate message. It was a subtle but revealing slip that exposed far more than any official press release ever could. In Formula One, words matter. And when the championship leader hints that his team boss is walking on eggshells, it transforms the entire perception of the team. McLaren, once seen as confident leaders in control of their destiny, are suddenly portrayed as nervous, reactive, and overly concerned with emotions rather than performance. Piastri's tone was calm, but the implications were seismic. He admitted that management has already raised the subject of what will happen between him and Norris when one of them inevitably emerges as champion and the other is left behind in disappointment. He even used the word pain to describe what awaits, acknowledging openly that there is no sugarcoating the reality of 2 drivers fighting for the same prize. For a driver who has spent his career avoiding drama, this was an extraordinary level of honesty. It revealed that behind McLaren's polished facade, the reality is far more fragile. Discussions are happening, feelings are being managed, and nerves are clearly beginning to show. The irony of this situation is striking. McLaren should be in their most dominant position of the modern era. They have arguably built the fastest car on the grid. They are on track to secure back-to-back Constructors' Championships, and they could even shatter the 1,000-point barrier in a single season, a historic milestone that would stand as one of the sport's great achievements. But instead of headlines celebrating dominance, the narrative has shifted to dysfunction. Instead of fans marveling at raw speed, they are now debating sensitivity. And all of it stems from one driver's carefully chosen words. Piastri has managed to expose a vulnerability without attacking his team directly. He praised McLaren for their role in his rise, but made it clear that he is aware of the cracks forming above him. He also stressed that while others may lose their nerve, he will not. He made it clear that he will not suddenly take reckless risks simply because the championship is within his grasp, nor will he let the pressure push him into desperation. He sees his calm, measured approach as a weapon, and his consistency has already paid off, especially compared to Norris, who has occasionally faltered under pressure. This contrast only highlights the imbalance within McLaren's leadership. While Piastri is showing calm determination, Zak Brown is being described as hesitant and overly cautious. That imbalance could prove costly. Championships are not won by tiptoeing around emotions. They are won by clarity, courage, and decisive conviction. Monza still hangs over everything. Fans have not forgotten the team orders, the pit stop controversy, or Piastri's dry but cutting radio message reminding his engineers that slow stops happen. Now, his latest comments have only deepened the suspicion that McLaren are not truly letting the fight unfold naturally. Critics across the paddock have pounced. David Coulthard accused McLaren of undermining racing itself by manipulating outcomes. Robert Dornbos warned that team orders risk stripping Formula One of its unpredictability. Bernie Ecclestone went further, bluntly suggesting McLaren would rather see a British champion in Norris than an Australian one in Piastri. And when Max Verstappen's mocking radio laugh at Monza went viral, ridiculing McLaren's fairness claim, the ridicule became impossible to ignore. Social media has kept the flames alive. Clips of Piastri's pit stop have been spliced against Norris's struggles. Fan polls overwhelmingly insist McLaren made the wrong call, and sarcastic phrases like "praise papaya" have become shorthand for the perceived double standards inside the team. Thanks to Piastri's honesty, these conversations are no longer about one race. They are about McLaren's culture itself, about whether Zak Brown has the strength to lead his team through the storm. Veteran journalist Peter Windsor's critique may be the sharpest of all, accusing Brown of having no plan and hiding behind vague talk of fairness instead of confronting the reality of two drivers in direct competition. He warned that smiles and PR-friendly images of harmony cannot last forever. At some point, the gloves will come off. And asking a driver in the middle of a title fight to give away points is not only pathetic, but also unsustainable. No champion will tolerate it indefinitely, and McLaren are playing with fire by pretending otherwise. The stakes could not be clearer. McLaren may have the Constructors' title wrapped up, but that will only shine an even brighter spotlight on the Drivers' Championship. With just 31 points separating Piastri and Norris, the margin is so slim that one bad weekend could flip the entire fight. And every time McLaren intervenes, every time Zak Brown's sensitivity dictates a decision, the perception of favoritism grows stronger. Piastri's comments have reframed the rest of the season as a test of McLaren's leadership. If he loses the title by a handful of points, the story will not be about Norris's brilliance. It will be about Zak Brown's weakness. Yet in the middle of this storm, Piastri has positioned himself perfectly. He is the calm, consistent driver, the loyal team player who praises McLaren's success, but he is also the one who has subtly revealed the cracks. If he wins, he will be hailed as the driver who conquered not only his rivals, but also the politics swirling around him. If he loses, he will be remembered as the driver who saw the storm coming and warned the world. Either way, his voice will echo far beyond this season. For Zak Brown and McLaren, however, the margin for error is shrinking by the day. They cannot afford more indecision, nor can they afford to be seen as fragile or sensitive. What they need is clarity, consistency, and the courage to let their drivers race freely. Because if they fail, if hesitation and cautious management continue to dictate their approach, their dominance will be overshadowed, their legacy tainted, and their achievements remembered not as a triumph, but as a story of dysfunction. And thanks to Piastri's shockingly honest revelation, the entire world will be watching every move they make from here to Abu Dhabi.